Alex, really good to be here with you. Really excited to get started on our YouTube channel, where we're going to try and bring lots of sports psychology content to the shooting world. But before we start, we should probably introduce ourselves before we tell everyone what the plan is, what we're going to do. So Alex, over to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm looking forward to sharing some sports psychology content to shooters and beyond. I think it's relevant for all target sports. So yeah, my name's Alex. I'm Alex Wilkinson. I'm a shooter. I've had shooting experience for about 15 years. And over the past year, I've been working with shooting athletes, target athletes, whether it's golf, shotgun rifle, pistol, archery. So really concentrating on target sports, trying to develop and work in target sports. Specifically, my shooting background was previously in England and Great Britain for Olympic Skeet teams, and took a lot of that experience and really what inspired me to go and study and work on sports psychology as an area to develop in. Be great to know a bit more about yourself, Paul, as well, if you could share your background in the sport.
Thanks for the setup, Alex. That's a good lead in. So I have worked in shooting since about 2008. First shooter I worked with was air pistol shooter. Now, I never intended to work in shooting full time, but I did. Started working with some non-Olympic disciplines before the Glasgow Commonwealth Games, then with the British Paralympic team and the Olympic team for around 2014. And since then, I've stayed in shooting, working on the psychological aspects of the sport, trying to help athletes to achieve their goals, helping them work through disappointments, helping them work their big, hairy goals that they want to get to, and dealing with all the challenges that come from a mental perspective on the way. And what I've found is this niche of shooting, the applications of sports psychology are hugely relevant to help people to execute their technical skill really consistently. So we should probably say a little bit about why we've launched this channel and why we want to offer this content to people.
Yeah, I think it's about bringing sports psychology to everybody in the public that is able to access this freely. They can find out those sort of practical and useful tools, not just about reading a book or seeing the theory. They can listen to how we're working with science and how we've applied it in sport, how we're using it. So why is it that we've teamed up then, Paul? What do you see benefits of us doing this?
I think firstly, me and Alex really enjoy working together. So we've got to know each other pretty well over the past couple of years or so. I think Alex is a really brilliant practitioner. I've certainly learned a lot from him and his experiences. Hopefully the feeling is mutual. And I think we've got a really good opportunity to share some brilliant content that people will find really helpful, to introduce them into psychology and debunk some of the myths. And some of the things that we hear a lot about are things like, I have to be in the zone to be able to shoot. I can only shoot well when I feel calm. If I can recreate this feeling that I had that one time, I'll be able to shoot well again. Much of this is actually about the behavior that you can control. And it's not so much about what you think and feel. And it might sound a bit strange for psychologists to say, kind of thoughts and feelings are actually secondary when it comes to our performance. It's focusing on what to do that's key. So we're going to show you how to do some of those things and teach you some of the techniques and the processes that we share with our shooters, and you'll be able to use them yourself.
Awesome. I think we often hear, if we could bottle that feeling and sell it, you'd be a millionaire. So I suppose we're going to be talking about the times that we don't have to bottle it and sell that secret juice. It's about all the other times that you want to be able to perform at a level that you're happy with.
Yeah. And also, this isn't just about psychological techniques that are useful for elite shooters. So the things that we're going to talk about, yes, they're being used with top shooters who are having success with them, but they're also being used by shooters of all levels, of all different kinds of disciplines. And that's really important. So whilst we might talk about things and you might think, oh, that's not quite for me, if you think a little bit deeper about it, there'll be a way of applying these techniques to your discipline. So essentially, if you're trying to repeat a skill over and over again and build a score, which is pretty much what shooting is all about, then there will be a mental aspect to that performance to be able to execute to the highest possible level, the most consistent level every single time. So everyone can do this. So we should say a little bit about why the mental game actually matters, why you should even consider working on it. So let's be really clear from the outset. Technical skill is the most important thing. So if you don't have a technical foundation, whilst you might feel a little bit happier when you shoot, just working on psychology isn't going to help you alone, and you soon won't feel very happy when you continue to miss more targets. Your technical foundation and working with a good technical coach that can help you is the most important thing. But after that, it's worth looking at how your mental game gets in the way of you executing that skill. And one of the things that I find, I'm sure Alex finds the same as well, is quite often shooters try and look for a technical fix for a psychological problem. So they'll go and get the new stock made, they'll change the gun, they might change their technical game in some way, their foot position, the way they're looking at the target, whatever it might be. And all the time, they're not really looking below the surface and thinking, actually, is there something going on here that's getting in the way? So whilst technical skill is the most important thing, and one of the things I advocate the most is go and find yourself a really good technical coach, there will come a point where working on your mental game, whether that's with a psychologist or through your own reading, but working on your mental game will be really beneficial to you. And Alex, I'm sure you have got some really nice examples from your shooting career where you can talk to us about how pressure got in the way, but also you used your mental performance to overcome that and execute your skill.
Yeah, definitely pressure gets in the way over many years of shooting. I think we've all experienced it at some point. It's unnecessarily what that competition is. There's always that level of experience of sort of pressure with that experience. So I've got a fond memory of shooting with the GB team at Junior World Cup away in Germany. Had a really good pre-event training, shooting good scores, happy with how I was shooting. Got to day one of the competition. Felt all right from memory. Went on to station one, called for the target, lost, went into my pair, and it was pair away. I dropped all three targets in my very first stand of my very first layout of my very first competition for shooting for the junior GB squad. So that was quite a hit of reality after not really missing many in training or in pre-event training over there. And in that moment, your legs are shaky, you're experiencing nerves, your mind is racing, and it's okay. You need to get a hold of this and really focus on what needs to be done in that moment. And this was quite a bit before working on sports psychology, really. I hadn't really embedded anything. I didn't have a full understanding. And so at that point, it was just really about what can I focus on? What can I control? Looking back, it obviously worked because I went on to straighten the rest of all the stands and finished on 22 out of 25. So I think that was a good recovery in that moment of pressure because things could have gone a lot worse. Could have been a big catastrophe. So almost look back of it as one of my best rounds of Olympic Skeet, looking at all the expectation around that first round and expectations I had of myself. So I suppose it's just links back to those myths where you don't need to feel calm to shoot. I certainly didn't feel calm on that round, during that round. Shaky, nervous, thoughts racing. But if you concentrate and focus on the right aspects, and he can get you through. Obviously, I wasn't doing that on the first stand.
So fortunately for me and Alex, we work in a very similar approach. We both work from a method called acceptance and commitment therapy. So the messages that you'll get from us are really consistent. And it's about our beliefs based on research around a more effective way to deal with unhelpful thoughts and feelings that occur for all of us. So it's this approach called ACT. It's called acceptance and commitment therapy. We want you to just park the therapy word, but the two other words, acceptance and commitment, are really key. Now, the common approach to dealing with unhelpful thoughts and feelings, those really uncomfortable things that we don't like, is to avoid them. So to put off until tomorrow what we could actually be doing today, right now, but we don't because it's uncomfortable and it's easier just to park it and put it to one side. But if you're in a situation where you're putting all your energy into trying to suppress and bury or ignore these unwanted thoughts, that's energy you could be putting into the task. And under pressure, it takes a bit of time to process this stuff. So the acceptance part of this is not a passive, I'm just going to allow whatever to occur just to wash all over me and take it. It's an engaged process. It's having an awareness of what changes are happening internally for you, and then knowing where your attention has gone. So are you focused on the emotion of the situation? And is that having all power over you, or are you focused on the task, which will give you a lot more opportunity for success if your attention is focused on the key aspects of how you deliver the best possible shot. This work isn't easy, and that's why we work with people to help them to develop these skills. So once you're able to accept that high performance or your best performance will be uncomfortable if you're doing something that's important to you, the next stage is commitment. And what are you going to commit to? An ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, is all about your behavior and living in a values-focused way, doing things that are really important to you. So you make space from the uncomfortable feelings, and then you move to a space where you want to take action. You commit to action. And again, our work is about helping people to understand what the most important thing to do in that moment actually is. And that's why technical skill is so important, because you need to know what the right thing to do is. So it's a bit like this game of tug of war. So there's this constant battle between the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. The angel is all the things that you want to be doing, and the devil is that little voice at the back of your head and says, you can't do this. And this game of tug of war is going on all the time until you choose to drop the rope. And once you drop the rope, the devil's still there making all the noise. The angel is still there trying to move into a values-driven place. And then it creates freedom. It creates the freedom to be able to move forward in a direction you want to go into. So ACT is all about dealing with this game of tug of war. Alex, have you got any examples of your work with shooters where you've really brought this to life?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'll pick one example from within English sporting, but there's so many examples within all the other disciplines of shooting as well. So what I've heard and find often with English sporting athletes and clients is that they walk up to stands and they see the pair and they think, oh, I can't afford to miss these. I've got to straighten this stand. I've got to hit all of these. Those thoughts spiral into other people in my class or the category. They're not going to be missing these. And if I miss any of these, then they're going to get ahead of me. So by the time that they've got onto the stand to shoot, they've had this long, drawn out conversation with themselves. They're trying to understand and battle against these thoughts. And they're really mainly focusing on the outcomes, and they're often time traveling into the future, thinking about winning or losing their class or category on this one stand. And the importance and perceived importance of this stand is just increasing. So what you find then is that they haven't fully planned for the stand. They haven't really focused on the process. They haven't really focused on what they want to do. Instead, they've been focusing on around sort of the thoughts and feelings of this stand. So by the time they get in there, they're really tense. They're often scared to miss. They often feel a bit rigid in the movements, and they're hesitant to take on that target as they normally would. And so we'll see clients hanging on to the bird or being a little bit careful, measuring that target, trying to make sure. And this has all stemmed from a very early conversation that they had with themselves around, oh, these are easy. I can't afford to miss these. Perception of that particular stand. And this massively translates into loads of other disciplines in shooting. But a nice example work from within English sport that we can look at.
And how would you deal with that from an acceptance and commitment therapy perspective? What are some of the tips that you would give somebody in that situation if you're trying to their story?
Yeah, so what we're going to be looking at is allowing the client to notice this way of thinking initially, getting them to explore their own thoughts that they're having before stands, the thoughts around those stands, and then really understanding whether that's helpful or whether they're unhelpful. So we're less interested in whether they're true or real or even meaningful. We're just really focused on whether that thought is helpful or whether it's unhelpful. And often we can decide that by looking towards, is this thought taking me towards my goals and values, or is it taking me away from my goals and values? So I can't afford to miss these. Having that conversation with the client and then able to notice and acknowledge, okay, that's not helpful thought. It's going to take me into this path of debating it with myself. So they then are able to unhook. So we'll, in future sessions, share cognitive diffusion techniques. So about that unhooking, getting that attention away from that thought and putting our focus of attention back onto the process, or putting our focus of attention back onto breathing, or whatever else is helpful, whatever else the client wants to do in that moment, other than thinking about the pressure of straightening the stand or the pressure of having to hit all of them because they believe others will have done so. So we're going to be looking at the core skills that we're going to cover in the channel and for our future videos. So the core theme is going to be around how to prepare mentally for competition. So we're going to be looking at what you do beforehand to prepare for that competition. What is it that's really important in the lead up towards that competition, the week before, or maybe the morning before, managing, responding, and noticing what you're thinking and feeling, and how that's going to be important for your preparation towards that competition.
So next up, we're going to talk a lot about psychological routine. Keyword being psychological. A lot of my clients, when I first meet them, so tell me about your routine. What do you do before you're about to execute your shot, and when does that process start? And what they'll do generally is they'll give me a walkthrough of all the points that they're doing technically. So I load the gun, I bring the gun up, put the gun here, I look here, etc., whatever it might be, but it's all very much technically focused. And then they're a little surprised when their brain throws things at them and their routine doesn't help them to deal with that. So of everyone that I work with, we incorporate two big aspects. One is what's your relationship with your mind, and the other is the psychological aspects of a shot routine. So it's making sure there are parts within your routine that enable you to be able to deal with the unwanted and unhelpful stuff that inevitably your brain is going to throw at you. So your skill set can cope both technically and mentally under pressure. So you end up with a really robust routine. So we're going to talk a lot about psychological processes and routines. What's next, Alex?
Nothing that feeds nicely into changing the relationship with your thinking. And that's going to be a focus of ours. So having that new perspective with our thoughts, changing that perspective of how we view our thoughts, and then also creating that space away from those thoughts as and when it's needed. So ultimately, we're going to be seeing them for what they are, just chemical reactions that produce those words and letters. And we're going to be finding ways to create space, refocus back onto psychological routines, and refocus back onto things that are more favorable. So overall, that relationship is going to be more workable, more favorable around their thinking self.
Okay, so it's not enough just to be aware of what you're thinking and feeling, because awareness is great, but then you have to take action. So what we do with our clients is we give them the tools to respond. Once you can identify, is this thought helpful or unhelpful? Is this taking me down a path that I want to go down, like Alex's sporting shooter example earlier? How do I then make space from these thoughts or these feelings that I've got going on inside right now, so I can focus more effectively and put my full attention onto the task? So once you've identified what's helpful and what isn't, we're going to show you some skills that will help you to be able to respond in much more effective ways, and really, again, deepen that relationship that you've got with your thinking, so you know what's helpful for you and what isn't. And then lastly, Alex,
we're going to be pulling together all our learning, understanding how to accelerate that learning, and a lot of other themes as well that we'll obviously explore from what the comments and suggestions come from the channel. But accelerating that learning is really around that reflection practice. It's the analysis and learning from our performances, recording that and being able to move forward with new plans. So looking at what happened in that competition, what happened in that training session. And then, so what does that mean? Looking at what those feelings were, what the thoughts were, what impact that had on your training, your performance, your competition. And then links into that. Now, what can you change? What did you take from that whole experience to put into plan and put into action, so that you're able to move forward with clear goals?
So to give you an idea of what to expect from Alex and I here, new content every week, all on sports psychology concepts specifically for shooting sports. We're going to bring our experiences, both from Alex as a shooter and a psychologist, and mine of working with shooters of all levels for the last 15 years. We're going to share this with you. Hopefully you can go away and apply these concepts to your own shooting. So every week we're going to be offering up a long form video, and we'll couple that with some short form content as well. So you can take away some quick snippets of advice. The content is for any kind of shooter, really, whether you're a shotgun shooter, a rifle shooter, or a pistol shooter, even if you're an archer. All of these concepts will translate. All we want you to do is to just remove the idea of this content is about a particular discipline and just think, how does the psychological principle here around repetition of a skill, how does it apply to my sport and what I do? And if you can hold that frame with this content, you'll find it really useful, whatever it is that you shoot. As one of our subscribers, you're able to tell us directly what it is you want to hear from us. So please, in the comments, tell us what kind of subjects that you want us to talk about, what things will be most helpful for you to help you move forward with your mental game. Alex, over to you.
So just to reassure that anybody can do this, if you're willing to put in the time and the effort. We've explained already today how pressure is a normal response and we all experience it, we all feel it, and how you can develop and create your own response and prepare for times and competitions where you're going to experience that pressure. Now, we're really interested to know what you've been experiencing in your shooting. So what are some of the common issues? What are some of the common mindset traps that you fall into? So please let us know in the comments. Feel free to share all of those ideas. So whether you're a full bore rifle shooter or a rapid fire pistol shooter, or you shoot Olympic and non-Olympic disciplines of shotgun and any other target sports, we're really interested in hearing what issues, problems, and successes you've had with sports psychology. So please subscribe, share, and join us on this journey.